to The Verge, a thought leadership series by Divergent. I'm your host, Shaillee Juneja. The series is for healthcare leaders and organizations navigating the journey to digital transformation in the ever changing landscape of our healthcare industry. Our goal in this series is to bring to you disruptive success strategies for healthcare organizations, leveraging our experience and having worked with some of industry's top experts and thought leaders. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to invite you to leave us a review and let us know what you think about the episode and other questions that are top of your mind. With that, I'd like to welcome back my colleague Sarah Brandt into the conversation on digital ecosystem, building and optimizing digital strategy for your organizations. Sarah, welcome back.
Hi.
In our last episode, we talked about continued shift to digitization of patients, of care team experiences, or consumer experience in the healthcare journey, and how it's becoming a necessity for healthcare organizations that they have to address. Most organizations have implemented components of ecosystems, such as a patient portal, DocFind, e-scheduling, but really where the need is right now is to create a cohesive patient experience backed by data where the right information is presented for the patient at the point of need. And one of the biggest feedbacks we hear from our healthcare clients is lack of interoperability, the seamless flow of data with the patient as they navigate various touch points in their healthcare journey. And what we hear from consumers and patients in the study groups is that fragmented experience, the redundancy of data entry, and the gaps in information is really very inefficient and frustrating from them. With your focus on building the digital consumer experiences, Sarah, in helping build to put together the building blocks of an actionable strategy, what are some of the key insights organizations can leverage as they try to figure out where am I in the whole spectrum and where do I go from there? What would be a good starting point for them?
That's a great question. So what we often see is everyone's at a different point when it comes to things digital or all things digital. So acknowledging that you may be in a different point in the journey from a maturity aspect, I think it's really key though to make sure your digital strategy has a cohesive vision.
Mhm.
And most people may say, oh, that's a lot to put together. How am I ever going to get all the right people in the room to formulate this really solid vision for the strategy? And I think what's key is when we acknowledge that digital strategy requires these multidisciplinary cross-functional teams.
Mhm.
Aligning on that vision statement really sets that path forward in terms of then assessing where you even are. So sometimes that vision statement relates back to, and hopefully to, a corporate strategy and corporate goals that have elements of digital underpinning them. And if not, I think it's just key to take away that this isn't a single department initiative to really drive forward this interconnected, interoperable ecosystem that our patients and consumers are really looking for. And so I think that takeaway there being setting that vision is a great first
Mhm.
step, and then making sure that cascades as you think through your roadmap. But share with me a little bit more what you've seen from different individuals that are on different places in their journey.
What I find is it can be the technology leaders, healthcare organizations, they know they have to do this, but there is really varied understanding of what digital strategy really is for my organization because it is not one size that fits all. And what I have found that is most that works well for the clients is really helping them assess where they are. And that starts by kind of what you were saying, Sarah. What is your organizational strategy? Are you a healthcare system or are you an IDN, which is a group of healthcare systems and providers? What are some of the market trends in your community? What are some of the market trends or consumer trends in the target populations you're trying to serve with? What are some of your strategic goals? Is it to acquire new market share? Is it service line expansion? Is it to have more revenue capture? What are the key operational challenges, operational goals you're trying to work towards, and really lay out what I call the digital blueprint. With that strategy, with those goals, Come a level down. What are the key operational efforts in place today or being planned? What are the key operational challenges? Bring it a level down. What in those operational areas, what are the digital experiences, digital domains you've created today or you plan to create? Bring it a level down. What technologies you have implemented for that, and then a level down. What are the key data architecture behind it? What data is flowing, not flowing, and really then bring it down to what are the gaps. So it really starts by understanding and defining where you are. Like you said, digital strategy to define one can be very complex, can be very overwhelming. So, really breaking it up into bite sized pieces, putting it together in a way that it's relatable, it is understandable by various operational leads, and more importantly, that digital blueprint, that gap analysis to really turn into actionable things, tangible things that can be done to really close the gap and realize value. In my opinion, it is not about trying to swallow the whole elephant, but breaking it up into bite sized pieces that are digestible by the organization. So I often start with assessing where you are, helping define and educate what is the digital blueprint today to what it needs to be. And in that spectrum, where are opportunities to improve or optimize?
Yeah, I think that's key to help give folks a framework of something to kind of hang on as they start to digest different pain points or opportunities in the organization, especially when we talk about vision and making sure there's alignment and buy in. We do have to acknowledge sometimes we have to communicate back. What are we doing? How does this all fit
Mhm.
together? So, starting with that vision, making sure the domains within our strategy are clear, I find really helps shape that executive messaging or creating the buy in. And when we talk about looking at some of those gaps, what's the best way to identify them? So we're
Mhm.
probably all used to having different portals where we have a laundry list of tickets. We have our own project plans that we have technical debt listed on, right? So it can become very overwhelming to say, where do we focus elements
Mhm.
of our digital strategy? What are our true opportunities? In those cases, I often like to guide people towards having some type of facilitated workshop and
Mhm.
discussion, bringing in those operational leaders, bringing in staff that's dealing day in, day out with these pain points as part of the member or patient experience. And to the discussion point earlier on integrated networks, these workshops can be really helpful for folks from a health plan perspective and from a provider side and care management teams to come together to figure out where could they be using digital strategy and technology to close some of those gaps and to create a seamless experience. And so typically in those workshops, it's even helpful to have folks draw it out. Not everyone loves drawing pictures, but that can always be a strategy of what's the pain point and think really big of, what could this idea be? We don't have to come up with all the solutions or what vendor, what specific technology will use, but what is that ideal experience? And then knitting those back to the domain helps us say, okay, have we diversified our strategy? Are we touching on the right things, or do we have elements that are only focused on one domain over another? And so having that framework allows us to kind of align things to then start to talk about, okay, where do we start? What are our most important initiatives and priorities that we want to tackle as part of our strategy and our digital efforts?
Often when I talk to the CFOs or financial leaders of healthcare organizations, the common thing I hear is this is like a big black hole. I keep putting in the money, but I don't quite understand. I intuitively and subjectively understand the value we're creating for the organization and for the consumers. But what is a tangible ROI and what is a realistic pace at which I can realize the ROI out of my investment? So, one of the things I found helpful, like you were saying, kind of facilitating this strategy session, laying out where you are, where the gaps are, is then taking those gaps and translating that into the value impact, the ROI impact, the strategic goal impact, kind of all on all of those things so that when you're looking at prioritizing the list of your gaps, you're looking at it from very different perspectives, not just to workflow efficiency, not just financial, but really a cohesive picture on that. So that's what I've found very helpful, that when we put together our gap analysis and really put together the summary in terms of value, in terms of financials, in terms of strategic alignment, in terms of what it would take, the investment it would take, not just financial, not just technology, but the resources, and also talk about the culture readiness assessment part of it. Some of these might be great ideas, but the organization might not have the appetite or readiness to really bring about the culture change to digitize those experiences. So, really having that cohesive approach to gap analysis, I found is very helpful.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about a black hole, because I hear that all the time too, it's how do we create transparency in the digital portfolio? Spot on with, right, when we start to distill, here are the domains, here are key pain points and potential solutions to address them. It creates a clear picture of here's what we will work on, here's how it all relates back together, and here's how we'll be transparent on why we're doing it in the hunt for the value that we said we would deliver. And so I think that becomes, using this framework, something that really we can be more transparent about the work we're doing. And that means also being transparent about where we miss the mark, where we fail, where we
Mhm.
need to recover and iterate and operate in a really fluid way. So we don't feel like we're operating anymore in these long project cycles and that
Mhm.
we don't know what's happening or we're not delivering to this vision, again, that was the foundation of what we set out to do with our digital strategy.
Absolutely. Breaking it into tangible pieces, digestible pieces, rapid value realization, I feel, is really the key to stakeholder engagement and buy in. If this turns out to be this one long, drawn out project, Sarah, like you're talking about, you lose the engagement and buy in of the stakeholders. I'd love to dive in deeper into stakeholder engagement, and also to talk about how can technology leaders really develop synergy with various technology vendors that are in this pool of digital strategy. Would love to dive in deeper on that. But until then, I want to thank you for tuning into Words, a thought leadership series by Divergent. We at Divergent are your partners on the journey of digital transformation and all the pivots and challenges our industry is going through. To learn more about us, visit us on divergent.com, and don't forget to check out the recent article Sarah and I have co authored on best practices to implement digital strategy. Join us again where we continue our deep dive into how to leverage multifaceted governance and develop synergies with your technology partners to engage your patients and generate value for your healthcare operations. Until then, have a great day and stay safe.